Guys, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. If you didn't draw a hunt this year, don't worry. There are still ways to get a tag and get out in the field. Not only are there leftover and OTC opportunities, but if you join GoHunt.com Insider with promo code JScott by August 31st, 2021, you're also going to be entered to win $1,500 worth of KUIU gear. You also are going to get 10 entries into Go Hunt's Big Summer of Elk giveaway, where you could win a 2022 New Mexico elk hunt and $15,000 in hunting gear. Go Hunt Insider is the one platform for finding great hunts, researching new units, e-scouting, and planning your hunt. Now, an added incredible value at no extra cost are desktop maps and maps available on iPhone and Android. Again, this is no extra cost. It's part of being an Insider member. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Sign up at gohunt.com/JScott and get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card just by using the JScott promo code. And also, don't forget, you're going to be entered into a drawing to win $1,500 worth of KUIU gear. I also want to thank the gear shop at GoHunt.com and Cody Nelson, my friend of 20 plus years, the glassing guru. Don't forget, if you order on GoHunt.com or you call or text Cody at 602-399-3699, you're going to get a 10% discount by using the JScott promo code. You can also call the shop directly at 702-847-8747 or email at optics@gohunt.com. I want to thank Go Hunt for their sponsorship of this podcast. I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting for sponsoring this podcast. That is the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. You can go to kuiu.com to order directly off the website. They're a direct-to-consumer company. They make the best hunting gear on the market today. Also, phonescope.com. Use the JScott21 promo code. You're going to get a 10% off on all orders at phonescope.com. Guys, thanks for listening, and let's get right to this episode.
There he is.
You better plug the phone in. Be smart this time.
Yeah, can you hear me? Someone was saying they couldn't hear me. I must have had my earphones on mute.
Yeah, you just came through just now, so yeah, that's probably what it was.
Okay, awesome. Excited to have you on again. We had so much, people were excited about our last one. We figured we'd do another, and we had a bunch of questions, so I'm excited to have a bunch of people on here. Guys, feel free to put your questions in here. Any questions you have of Chris and I in regards to elk hunting, but as well as anything else, also we'll answer everything. And so I'm looking forward to it. Chris, you were just on your own channel doing Instagram Live. What were you guys talking about?
Just exactly what we did last time. Just testing my connection, making sure Wi-Fi was working since the last. Obviously, I'm sitting in my truck. The Wi-Fi at the hotel was not working, so I had to bail and scramble around, try to figure some free Wi-Fi I could scab off of. So I'm technically, so all you firefighters, shut the hell up. I'm parked in a fire lane behind Walmart, scabbing off of free Wi-Fi.
We're gonna get to see Chris get towed right here live on Instagram Live.
There's a lot of red paint around me and a lot of red, valves and wheels and fire hydrants and stuff. So we'll see if I get to sit here for very long.
If we hear a knock on the door, we'll know exactly what it is. One of the things that's interesting that I don't even know is, are we able to conduct these just on LTE? That's a question maybe someone knows the answer to. I don't know the answer.
I think you can if your signal's really, really good. The problem is for me, I don't have like AT&T or Verizon. We went with Straight Talk because where we live, you can go from one county road to the next, and over here Verizon works better, and over there AT&T works better. So by going our provider, we can bounce off of any other tower we're on. The problem is we're low man on the totem pole, so the amount of connectivity we have is highly variable, and I think that kills it for a live or anything like this. So it's just better to go with the Wi-Fi.
Chris, I'm going to go through. I do see a couple questions here before we dive into it. We've got how much will a mature bull's antlers grow? I can tell you from following bulls at the Odd Six Ranch, it totally depends on feed. It depends on age. It depends on a lot of different factors, as well as guiding in Arizona for 20 years on public land. Easily, a bull can put on 30 inches easily in the right conditions in his correct or the right age cycle, depending on where he's at. Can put on 30 inches pretty easy. I've seen bulls that go from 350 to 380. I've seen bulls that go from 300 to maybe even 340. So I mean 30-40 inches is pretty easy. Question follow-up is that how much will a bull and Chris weigh in here, how much will a mature bull's antlers grow during their last month of growth with average moisture and feed? Not much. I think there's a point when they're just going like crazy, and about the last 2 weeks is when virtually none, and then the 2 weeks prior to that they can still go pretty good, but I would say they're going to do more in that 2 months prior to them shedding their velvet. So I mean typically that month of June and the first part of July is kind of what I think they're going to grow the most antlers. Chris?
Yeah, no. So for both of those, yeah. So the older the age class of the animal, the longer that they actually grow their antlers. So the younger bulls, if you think about it, they drop their antlers really, really late, but yet they're hard horned just like everybody else is. So they have a very short window of growth, but that's just biologically, physiologically, they just don't grow as long. Mature bulls can grow, there was 150 to 200 days, something roughly like that. But no, the answer, yeah, and the answer is yeah. Those last 30 days, the vast majority of growth, the vast majority of growth is done. What they're doing is mineralizing all of that bone. So you can tell if they're going to throw more inches by looking at the tips of the antlers. If the tips of the antlers are very, very rounded and almost they're like a gray or a dark gray, or sometimes they're a shiny black, that's because all the blood vessels are at that tip, and it's just growing like crazy. If the tips start to get really pointy and it's just tan velvet like the rest of the antler, that tip is done growing. All it's doing now is he's just pumping minerals, and he's turning that entire rack into bone. Most of the time in August, that's all they're doing. They're just throwing mineral into that set of antlers. They're not growing any structure whatsoever. So,
hey guys, I got to take a break here and show you what's going on. Hopefully you can see this. Can you see that little mutt down there?
What is she?
She's been the whole time you're talking. She's over here rubbing and rolling, and she's like acting like a bull elk over here. Of course, when I pull the camera up, she stops doing it. But if you hear, it's me and Poppy and Chris here on the Instagram Live. Chris, most of the bulls, or let's say the earliest I got reports already this year was August 8th. The bulls in Unit 9, Monty let me know he had already seen some bulls rub. And they kind of rub at different stages depending on their age class. But this is what I'm doing here, guys.
And especially when they start. Jay, that's why I tell you, this time of year, you cannot be peeing on the floor everywhere.
She's she's digging to China or something down there. I don't know what she's doing. Hopefully she's not interrupting. But would you agree, though, that the older bulls are going to rub first, the younger bulls are going to rub? A lot of times they're going to rub later. But they're going to rub anytime from that 8th till about that 20th, 25th sometimes. We've seen spikes in little real young bulls still, in September when bulls are bugling, they still have their velvet.
And I've actually watched bulls rubbing velvet off at the end of July before, and it really does. It's when did they drop? I've got a video that I talked. Well, heck, it was a part of a podcast. I talked about the antler cycle and how it starts, and it's interesting to see the feedback loop that you can get based on good trophy management of your herd, high bull to cow ratio, because antler shedding is hormone related, and they fall off once the testosterone drops below a certain amount. Well, that testosterone will drop due to photoperiod, But as long as there's sexual stimulation through the fall that artificially holds that testosterone high, they'll extend that date on when they drop their antlers. So if all the cows come in and breed and there's a very tight breeding pulse and there's no more breeding done, those mature bulls break off that group. Well, they're done breeding. That testosterone input, drops faster than it does those younger age class. Usually you'll see them, the older age class, drop first, which means they get to start earlier than the other guys do. And it's a fixed window. It's a set number of days that typically dictate how many days of growth that particular animal is going to grow. Now, what he manifests is going to be completely based on what his body condition was coming out of the winter, how much resources does he have, and then his summer feed that he's got available to him. But he's got a fixed amount of time that he's got to grow. Doesn't matter what happens in there. If it's going to be 150 days, he's going to grow for 150 days. But that last 30 days, to 3 weeks is all going to be mineralization of what he threw up there. So, yeah.
Chris, we've got a question here in regards to the moon. We've got a question here, full moon, and I was just pulling that up. I believe it's on the 20th. It might be on the 17th.
Who cares? Doesn't matter.
All right, let's talk about that. Why doesn't it matter?
Go out and hunt. Because there's a lot of people, you've got two different schools of thought. You got two different things that people talk about with the moon. Does it affect the rut? They'll say, does it affect the rut? But what people are talking about in there is you've got two different things. Is it? And we've talked about this. I don't know how many times. Does it affect hormone cycling? No. There's enough research out there now that has shown that no, it doesn't affect hormone cycling in cows. It does not trigger the rut. It doesn't do anything of the sort. But does it change daily activity cycles? Yes. Maybe. Yes. Depending. If we're talking about a large private ranch that has almost no disruption in, there's no pressure on those elk. You go to Rocky Mountain National Park, they're doing it's just 24/7. They don't care. Moon is really not a big deal. You go to an over-the-counter unit that's got major heavy pressure. Okay, now yes, can you see a little bit more nocturnal activity? Yes, you can. But the elk are still there. They're still going to be vocal. They're still going to be they're still going to respond to calls. The only thing that I do when I'm dealing with it, and I don't even talk about a full moon. I'm talking about a bright moon phase. So from that half moon to full moon to half moon, that's bright at night. But as the moon is rising, it's going to be brighter earlier and later in the early evening. As it's full moon, it's going to be bright all night long, and then as that moon is getting smaller, it's going to be brighter longer into the morning. And so you just have to adjust when if the elk are already, and this is the thing, is I don't really give two rips about the moon because, like Jay, you and I've talked about, even in Unit 9, where you've got tons of elk, great age class, you can get out in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of people, don't get me wrong, and they can be pressured. But even there, even when the moon is not in play, you're still wanting to get out there 1-2 hours before it even sliver of daylight. So, no, I keep my schedule the exact same. Maybe I'll anticipate the hope to have a little bit more activity, in the evening on one side or the morning on the other side. But I'm going to take advantage of, if the elk are out there at night and they're talking, well, then get your butt out there and listen to them and follow them and figure out where they are, and then get a game plan for the next day. They might be in their bedding areas earlier than usual, but okay, if the wind is good, those midday hours can be phenomenal. But I don't change a thing that I'm doing with my calling. I don't change a thing that I do with my strategies. All I do is I just adjust where those elk are at so just get out there and hunt. Go.
One thing I would say about the moon being full on the 20th is the fact that they have already had a chance to kind of get into it, and they've already kind of started going and rutting and bugling and getting into their routine. I have seen when the full moon is at the beginning, when they should be just starting to kind of get going, I've seen it make the hunt very, very slow because they're kind of just getting into it. There's a full moon, and it makes them daylight pretty lackadaisical. So while I do agree with you on you have to just change your tactics and it doesn't really necessarily matter, they're still going to be there, you can still work them. I have seen it when they are yet to kind of get going, that it makes it extra slow.
Okay,
when people are limited to 7 days, that's when they're looking at it going, I might go when there's better daytime activity.
And I understand that. If you have the flexibility to do it and you can plan, then okay, maybe. And the reason why what you're saying, Jay, what you've seen is that's absolutely the case. I've always said that the full moon basically enhances whatever behavioral stage they are in. Because I haven't looked at it in a while. I think it's the serotonin. But yeah, the moon can. The brighter light in the evening is going to change some of the hormones that they're dealing with. But basically, it doesn't change estrus cycling. What it does is change that activity level. So if they're getting ramped up, a full moon will kick them in the pants, and here we go. But if they're not, if they're late, and here's the thing: is it, people always say, "Oh, well, should I go with the full moon?" I would rather not. I don't care about the full moon. Tell me what the pressure cycle is going to be during that week. Are we going to have high pressure? Or are we going to have low pressure cycle weather systems coming in? That's going to change the behavior way more than what a moon phase does. So if you've got a pressure cycle coming through there that changes it, and yeah, no.
So do you like high pressure for more activity and more consistent activity, or low pressure?
Right now, I'm torn because I've been seeing both, but I've tried to been paying attention to it. I like having the change in pressure. I have not seen consistent activity at a high pressure, and I have not seen consistent activity at low pressures. It seems when you get those changes in those pressure cycles, it seems to be a little bit better. I mean, I remember, again, there's another video on the elk module. Here I am on the fence line in Unit 9, on the fence line of Grand Canyon National Park on September 27th.
Which
and
side
I just
of the fence?
Doesn't matter. I'm just sitting there. The camera was rolling, and I did. I just sat there with the camera rolling. I said, "Just listen to this," and it was just all you could hear was the crickets. I mean, there was nothing. And you know how the park is. I mean, the park is like Rocky Mountain National Park. There should be bulls in there just going nuts, screaming. September 27th, not a peep. But we had just low pressure after low pressure after low pressure that just kept coming through there. You couldn't buy a bugle. It was just brutal. But it seems as though it's when those changes are happening where it's a little bit better. Whitetails, it's interesting. Whitetails seem to be a little bit different. There's a really good, at least where I'm at, and I've heard this from someone else before, where they say when the temperature and the pressure meet, that's when you want to be out in the field. So if you put your temperature graph on the top, and then you put your barometric pressure graph underneath it, as your temperature is dropping or bottoming out, if you have a ridge of high pressure right there to where those two just kind of come up and meet, you had better be in your ground blind, you better be in a tree stand, because the deer are going to be just moving. That is, I will absolutely, for all my hunts and my personal hunt and all my hunters, I will look at that hard. But for elk, man, it seems there's just different factors in play. But no, the barometric pressure absolutely affects it much more than the moon does, in my opinion.
Next question. Chris, you hike in a couple hours before sunrise often. Are you using a white headlamp light or red-green?
Yeah, just if you have a white lamp, okay, no. I won't even joke about that because it's it. No. Do not use a white headlamp. Jeez, OP, you could see that for like literally miles. I mean, you could be on the top of the mountain. I can tell you right now how many times that I'll be up. I will be in the valley, up on the ridge, in a staging area where I should be able to hear elk, and I know when everybody's coming up the trail, because here come the white headlamps, and they're many hundreds of yards down the trail in the timber. Here come the white headlamps looking. And the same thing with green. People say all the time, "Oh, green doesn't ruin your night vision." Doesn't matter. You can see green from a long distance away. Now, we can have a discussion whether elk see green or not, but they darn well see white. And I can tell you, in pressured areas, if they get used to people coming up the ridge or coming up a main pack trail, and that white headlamp starts going, they'll just peel right off to the side. They're like, "Nope, we're out." So if I use a headlamp, and this is one I've been criticized, I usually have pretty good night vision. If I use a headlamp, it's always a red lens if I'm going to be coming up into elky areas. If I get down into a place where there's just no elk and it's a very technical part of the trail, I might kick my headlamp on, my white light on, but I'm going to cover it up with my hands so it's just barely enough white to where I can see detail. But no, do not hike in with a white light. I don't even like the green light. If you have to hike in, use a red light. What's that?
I was just taking your picture.
Oh.
Next question. Northern Alberta this year, we got Chris on a good day here. Northern Alberta this year, we are setting records for how dry it is. Past 10 years, wallows I've hunted have 4-foot thistle. This year, my plan is to solely find any water sources that can be good. Anything else I can do to help this year how dry it is?
Find the feed. Where's the best? Even though you don't have water that's daylighted, are there places in the area that you hunt that have higher soil moisture than other places? Because if you can find if it has a little bit higher soil moisture, I would assume, I don't know your habitats, but if you're talking up northern Alberta, I'm going to guess the vast majority of the grasses and forbs that you're dealing with there are going to be cool season grasses, which means they're probably going to respond a little bit better to higher soil moisture. So that's what I would be. He's right. Find the water. And then the next part after that is, okay, find the water and then find those little cool, dark pockets. And where are those little pockets of better forage versus everywhere else?
Okay, next question. How far do most bulls travel once they shed their velvet?
It's completely habitat dependent.
So I've seen bulls that stay in the same spot all summer. They summer right there and they shed their velvet right there and they stay right there. And then I've seen bulls in Arizona that shed their velvet and they go 30 miles. They're in Unit 10 and they go to 7 West. They're in 7 West, they go to Unit 9. They go from Unit 9 to Unit, like they're just go.
And quite honestly, and there's research that I just was reading a paper the other day that was saying that they actually, well, it was from Starkey. They actually were looking at movement of different densities, and yeah, even in high density areas where the forage quality decreased quicker, there was a lot more commingling of bulls versus cows than there was when you had a low density and there was really good forage across the landscape. Once there's really good forage, they can segregate. They get more chance to do whatever the hell they want. So it really depends on the density of the elk you're dealing with, the forage quality that you're dealing with, and the habitats that you're dealing with.
Chris, still love the Hyperlip double, or do you have a new favorite? And also let them know you don't just blow the double, because I see you blow both.
Yeah. So no, the only time I use the double is when I'm using when I want to accurately reproduce an assembly mule. So 90% of my calling is with an open reed style call, but I'm going to use a Steve Chappell matriarch. That's my favorite. And then the Steve Chappell trophy wife, that's my second favorite. And then have you tried the Heartbreaker? No, not yet. Not yet. Really good. Is it good?
Really good. It's got a lot heavier barrel. It's like, I don't know if it's some sort of metal. I don't know if it's aluminum or what it is, but it's heavy feeling to your hand, and it's nice. I mean, I got a couple of trophy wives and a couple of Heartbreakers, and this Heartbreaker's sweet. But I do love the matriarch. But tell them the assembly mule why you use the double.
Well, the double is just, it's because you got two real thick reeds. You got two reeds, number one, and they're both thick. It gives you such a much deeper tone, more mellow tone to it. It really does accurately represent or imitate the sound vocal signature of a mature cow doing that vocalization. I've got a video on the website that shows a cow giving that assembly mew, calling her calf to come in to nurse, and you can literally play her, and then you can especially if you have the Hyperlip double with the tone converter in place. The tone converter in place, it basically it's a rubberized plastic. I don't even know what you call it. It snaps over the back end of the call. It builds back pressure on that call, which helps the reeds break a little easier, so you don't need as much lip or air pressure. But it also tones it down to where it makes it sound like what a cow sounds like when she puts all of her, because a cow can vocalize with her mouth open, or she can vocalize with her mouth closed and send it all through her nasal cavity. Well, when she does that, it's going to change that vocal signature a little bit. The Hyperlip double with that tone converter does both those things just so accurately. You can literally play a cow doing the assembly mew, and then you can do it, and it's money. It's just dead on. There it is. So there's no call that does that vocalization better than a Hyperlip double with a tone converter.
And I was just going to throw it out there to Steve Chappell and to Jason Phelps. Guys, someone please, other than Primos, come up with a Hyperlip double type call. And
I've asked them to, and
I know.
But I think most people think it's a gimmick.
Yeah, I wish, hopefully they'll listen and do it. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this next question just because I feel like it's further season out than some of these, imperative questions that we have for this season coming. But my first elk hunt, second rifle, would you throw out some cow calls still? I think it depends on where you're at. I think, if there's elk talking or if you have nothing going, I don't think it can hurt you. Chris, without spending a ton of time on a second rifle, just because we can do this to 1st of October.
Answer is yes. The answer is yes.
I tuned in just to see Poppy. Great, she's here. She loves doing these. Let's see. On the same bull for 3 years, and he has finally blown up to a giant. Know where he has rutted in the past. What are the odds of him going to the same area? He will be in the same area more than likely, unless some feed conditions or water conditions or something does not allow him to enjoy what he's enjoyed there for the last 3 years. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen a bull year after year come back to the same spot, and sometimes it's crazy. They come back the same day. Like, I saw him on the 24th, and guess what? Boom, he comes back 24th, same spot. It's crazy. Saw one bull this weekend fully rubbed and one partially rubbed in Unit 5. Hi, Mike. Good to see you. Do bulls that are in one drainage right now usually stay around there until September, given there's cows, feed, and water? South central Colorado. Not necessarily. I mean, you can have bulls that are there all summer in one drainage and they rub their velvet and boom, they're gone. And then you've got bulls that are homebodies. We have them on the ranch that literally are, we have bulls on the ranch that don't go to one end of the ranch or the other. They stay in one spot, but they never go to one end. We have bulls on the ranch that will rut on the north, on the south, east, west, and they'll go to every corner. And then specific bulls, you can look for them in one spot, and they're never anywhere else. So, I think, Chris, you want to weigh in on that?
All I would say is I don't get caught up on the bulls. The problem comes is
unless he's a giant, then you have to figure out
and that's okay. And that's exactly where I was going to say is if you found a giant now okay, that's a different story because don't automatically expect him to be right there. Now he might be right there early, with the cows, but that's the problem is the cows can then split up and start to branch out. And if that cow group splits up, well, he's going to choose one and he's going to go with them. So you're hoping that the cow group that bonds with him stays there. Otherwise, you're going to have to look for him because, if the cows are around, right now I would be focusing on where the cow groups are because that's where the bulls are going to start making their way to them. And just because you have a bull here and a cow group here doesn't mean this bull doesn't go way over here and find this cow group.
They'll walk by cows to find other cows.
Correct.
And go rut where they want to rut. I hear it
Yep.
all the time. People say, oh, well, there's cows there. Or if you're talking about mule deer or whitetail, oh, there's does there. Not necessarily. He could check and stop and check them, but very likely he could walk right by him and never pay him attention because for whatever reason he doesn't like them. He wants to go to greener pastures. But you often say 6B in Arizona is not good. Are you talking about rut activity or just not good overall? 6B, in my opinion, the habitat, there's not a ton of it. It's kind of a small unit. It does get quite a bit of pressure, and it just has never over the years really produced anything that good, as well as the amount of pressure from, and I haven't hunted it personally, but a lot of guys I know have, with the kind of small amount of area that everybody's jammed into, the pressure makes it where they don't bugle quite as well as they do in other areas. Would you rather deal with muzzleloader pressure in OTC archery unit but have good bugling, or go first week of season, not deal with as much pressure but miss the peak bugling season? I think this is a pretty good question, Chris.
I don't.
Be nice. Be nice.
I don't. Well, no, I am. I have been maybe unfortunate in my areas because I really don't see much of a difference between the pressure of the first week, second week, third week, fourth week of season. It's just, you're going to have freaking pressure.
Well, and especially since the season now starts on September 2nd, maybe you could have
Correct.
made that argument a couple years ago, or
Correct.
a handful of years ago when it started on like the last Saturday in August,
Correct.
right?
100%. 100%. And quite honestly, the other
Chris, are you there? We lost him. We'll wait to get him back here. Great advice, Chris. How'd you guess? Let's see. How do you both think this drought here in the West will... Oh, we lost Chris. All right. How do you think the drought here in the West... Let me see if Chris is... Okay. We'll wait for him to jump back on here. Is light cow calling at a water hole setup stupid? I don't think so at all. I think if you're sitting and nothing's going, given a few cow calls, those bulls, other cows might be in the distance and might be wanting that reassurance that potentially there's other elk there in the area. So, I mean, even a light bugle or even a good bugle every once in a while. I think one of the things you got to watch is calling too much, and then as they're curious and they're approaching, and then all of a sudden they're not seeing any activity. They see the water and it's just dead calm. It's not being stirred up. I think that will tend to make them nervous. Let's see if Chris is texting me here. Chris, just come back on if you get service. But yeah, I think light calling, just trying to pique a bull or cow's curiosity, is not a bad idea. Let's see here. Going out this weekend for early season in Utah, any recommendations on calling and other tactics? Okay, one of the things, guys, that I really like to do early season is to take a couple of small, like 4 or 5 point type antlers with you on your backpack. And when you get in close, if you're able to have someone with you, get behind you and you get up front and have them clank the antlers together. That can be super effective, as well as raking a tree. Right now, the bulls, it's the 18th of August, and most of the bulls are rubbed and rub the velvet off, and then they're going to be going around and rubbing and trying to harden their antlers, trying to get the rest of the velvet off. They're trying to now start kind of going and staking out their territory. So raking and raking antlers together also can be super effective, as well as kind of making blind setups and sitting in an area where, and let me thumb through here and see if Chris is, here we go. sitting in an area and doing some blind calling can be advantageous as well. There you are. Are you mobile?
The phone got too warm, so it just shut the whole thing off.
So you're running the air on it?
That's what I'm trying to do right now. It's running the air conditioning on it. So hopefully it's cooled off enough. You got to be kidding me. So I guess I can't have it on my my window mount because apparently it gets too warm on the window mount.
Oh man, where are you?
Oh, I'm behind Walmart in Colorado here on the front range. This stupid freaking good lord.
You're the creepy guy behind Walmart.
Correct. This is my whole freaking month, man. If something stupid can happen, it's gonna happen.
You're the creepy guy.
Okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. I've been answering a few questions. There's a question here, Mike Stansfield. Does mineralization in 30 days mean stronger antlers and less breakage? So,
no. Yeah, no. So that's just what that antler does. So an antler grows. So when an antler starts growing, it's this vascular appendage. I mean, it's and that's why you see all the veins. It's full of blood vessels, and there's keratinization all the way up through it to just give it to some support. But that's why they're full of nerve endings, they're full of blood vessels, and they're easily broken and they're easily damaged. And that is what is growing. But as it grows, it will start to add some structure to it. But once that entire antler structure is about done growing, that's when all of a sudden the blood vessels start to dry up. It's just pumping calcium, magnesium, all those minerals just go in there to harden it up. It doesn't have anything to do with, it did it in 30 days. No, that's just how a normal antler cycle, antler genesis is about. Now, they do throw different minerals in different parts of the antler. That's a reason why you hear people talk about the ivory tips of the antlers. The tips of those antlers are a much higher density than the bulk of the antler itself. But really, mineralization happens that's just how it happens. The question on whether or not they get brittle or not, I think there's been some discussion about, in dry years versus wet years, how much mineral, are they able to get full mineralization on it, or is it just, generally weaker than it has been before just because they haven't been able to put as much mineralization in on it. That ends up being due to forage quality and how much forage they have. But the cycle is the cycle.
So, Chris, while you were cooling your phone down, got a question here. Going out this weekend for early season in Utah, any recommendations on calling and other tactics? I was talking about clanking, 4 and 5 point antlers together, having someone behind you, getting close to some elk, and most bulls, when they hear antlers, they just want to come see what it is. So that's a good tactic. I also talked about raking a tree, and then I kind of started getting into a little bit of blind calling. Anything you might add there to early season Utah? Utah starts right now, like 15th of August.
I wish I could be out there. I love this time. So yeah, bull vocalization strategies can actually be really good this time of year. And I'm not talking about screaming your head off, bugling, dominant bugles or challenge bugles, all that. Just the general bull vocalizations, moans, groans, huff, whines, all sorts of different stuff. Like you said, Jay, sounded like a couple bulls sparring. Awesome. Raking, yes. But if you're going to use cow calling strategies, do not hesitate to lean heavy on the calf vocalizations to start. And we talked about that, I think, in the last one. And when I get home, I'll be able to upload that other video that you and I did on talking about calf vocalizations and the.
We got a really good one. We're waiting for Chris to upload
awesome,
it,
man. It's awesome. It will be. I'm hopefully able to get it uploaded this weekend on both. The audio for you, Jay, but the video will be up on the elk module here this weekend. But no, all of those things are in play, man. The only thing is just do not feel like you're going to go out there and get aggressive with your bugling strategies. That's not
and
what's
have them
going on
come
right
storming in and have
Yeah.
them just come rushing in. Most of the time, they're going to come
That-
in kind of easy and just checking things out. Let's go to the next question here. Colorado OTC archery philosophy number 1: find the elk and avoid the crowds.
Yes.
Yes, yes to both.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Find the elk and avoid the crowds. There we go. That's a good start.
How much moving versus glassing do you do during the late season, mid-November? So if you're asking me, do a lot of sitting on one point and glassing and, giving it a good hour or so. And then I try and have subsequent other glassing points that I can bounce to. So I have kind of a primary glassing point that I feel like I can look into good country. And then I always like to have a couple places where I can pop up here, look for 30 minutes, pop up here, look for 30 minutes. So the first time I glass, it's for about an hour. Then I move, then my periods of time of glassing kind of slow down or speed up because I'm just trying to catch, that one bull that's up and moving. And if I'm sitting there looking and they're already bedded down, then I'm bouncing, trying to get where I can see stuff. Chris?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Early season OTC Colorado elk, non-vocal, target feed areas or water ?
How much water's in your area? First question. If it's been getting pounded with rain and there's water everywhere, well then okay, that's a non-starter. Then you
most of Colorado's been getting pounded.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then you're gonna have water everywhere. Then okay, then if you have the ability to glass like Jay was just talking about, use your eyes and glass and try to figure out where they are in those feeding areas. And then if you can't do that, then yes, go try to figure out where what I'm going to do at that point then is where the sanctuary areas, where can those elk go where they're not going to be disrupted by people. Because if it's been getting rain everywhere, you're probably going to get good vegetative growth, cool season vegetative growth across the mountain as well. So at that point, then I'm going to be trying to figure where's the sanctuary area, where are the elk going to go to get away from pressure.
And what about wallows, Chris? What about wallows?
I mean, the wallows can absolutely work. I mean, the rut's going to be kicking on, and you got bulls that are big. They've got fat on them. They got heavy coats starting to get, so they get a little warm, and they still want to wallow. But the problem is if you have a lot of wet weather and rainstorms every day, it's not as big of a draw. And a lot of times they're going to use them, sporadically. It's not like you can just sit on them and if all of a sudden you get a dry spell, or just a massive heat wave that comes through during your okay, absolutely game changer. But if it just stays where every day at 3 o'clock, it gets cloudy and it pours, just go in there and call them.
This is the second question I've gotten here. Backpack tax, good or bad thing long term for hunters? I don't even know what he's talking about. Backpack tax, do you? Is there some tax on backpack tax?
Oh, are you talking about what? Oh, I wonder if he's talking about. Yeah. So okay, we're jumping in the political spectrum here. Yeah. So if we're talking about a teaming with wildlife thing, so Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson, sporting goods, rifles, bows, arrows, fishing rods, all that type. We have a tax on it. That tax goes to pay for hunting and fishing. There's always been this push to have the non-consumptive user groups to pitch in as well. So binoculars and, backpacks and tents and sleeping pads and that type of stuff. Man, me personally, I am not a fan of it. And it's purely selfish because if we just real briefly, I talked about this in a couple of other podcasts recently, man, we are let's just say let's say on the high end, we're only 10% of the population. And the other 90% starts to actually pitch in and pay, quote unquote, pay their fair share. All of a sudden, there is no void. We don't have leverage as sportsmen. Right now, a lot of our hunting opportunities, I'm sorry to say this, a lot of agencies, there's this feeling that, well, we have to cater to hunters because that's how we pay our bills. If all of a sudden they're not paying their bills by hunters, well, then they don't have to cater to hunters.
Makes sense.
No, I personally, and this is just a selfish one for me, I am not a fan of that idea.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Nathan Goodworth here. After the big herd bulls have kicked satellite bulls out of the herd. Which method do you prefer and why? Spot and stock or get in and call?
You want me
Go
to
ahead.
jump on first? Dude, I love to call, man. For me, it's not about killing something. For me, it's getting to play the game. And this is dead serious. If I had a 380 bull in front of me, and the only way to kill him was to spot and stalk and sniper him, or I had a 330 bull in front of me that I could call and I could put him right here and I could make it, quote unquote, make him do what I wanted him to do, that 330 bull would be dead that fast. I enjoy the chess match, the intellectual play between myself and an animal. I'm always going to default to call it. That's just my personal bias. You?
Someone says yeah, I mean, it totally.
Jay's just gonna do. He's like, I'm not answering that one.
Yeah, someone says I'm he's question dodging like politicians. It depends what you want to do. If you want to kill a big bull, then do what it takes to kill it. If you want interaction, then
okay. So maybe I misunderstood his question. I thought he was just asking what I would do. I guess if you're talking,
no, he's saying the big bull has kicked the satellites out.
Yeah.
So he's an isolated bull with cows. Which method do you prefer, spot and stalk or get in? I think you answered it fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you can. I mean, listen, Dan Evans kills a piss pile of giant elk every year, and his preferred method, unless he's changed, is letting them bugle, letting them just do their rut stuff, and he just slips in there and zip it, done. So if you want to kill something and all you care about is putting an animal on the ground and you don't care how you do it, if that bull is over there bugling and going nuts and you can slip in and sniper him and just shoot him, do it. Calling is just a tool. So I prefer to use the tool. I would rather try to call him in. But if you can slip in and sniper him, go for it. But if that doesn't work, or you just can't quite finish it at that point, well, then go. Then, okay, fine. Then use your calls.
Hunting thick timber first week of September. Any good calling tactics would be appreciated. So he needs row hunting resources, calling strategies, targeted strategies. I highly recommend go on the elk module because Chris outlines and lays all this stuff out here. Give them a little taste, Chris.
And that's the thing. The big point here is it's not magic. There's no magic book. There's not this secret thing to do. If you know anything about me, you know darn well I talk about fundamentals of basic elk vocalization. What do they do day in, day out, speaking to one another when they need something? That is what I go in. I do not play to testosterone to start. I start in on the fundamentals. Lost mews, assembly mews, maybe some whines. I don't care if I'm in Arizona in the Big Pines, if I'm in New Mexico, if I'm in Colorado OTC, if I'm in a limited entry unit in Wyoming. It doesn't matter. I'm hunting elk, so I'm going to speak to them like elk speak to one another. I'm going to start at a target. Most of the time, it's going to be a targeted calling strategy. Starting with lost mute, this is when I'm actually working the bulls. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to use a bugle, maybe to try to get a contact bugle, try to get a location out there, or just get somebody to sound off. But when I'm going to work them, I don't care if I'm talking August 15th, September 1st, September 15th, or November 15th. I speak to them the way they speak July 5th, January 5th, September 5th. You come in at that level, like Jay said, the targeted. Lost mews, assembly mews. Where are you? Come here. Done. I know, it's frustrating because there's so many people out there marketing their ideas. They're marketing a call. They're marketing
the magic bullet.
Their program, and they're like, this is the secret. This is all you need to do. You're bullshit. No, wrong. What does an elk do? Ask yourself that. What does an elk do? And how can I reproduce it? Done. End of discussion. if you are doing what an elk does when he or she does it, and you sound like them, and you make a relevant vocal argument, they're going to do what you're asking them to do. So it's go. You can go on the Row Hunting Resources website,
but it's
right
super
now.
expensive, Chris. It's thousands of dollars.
$25 is going to break you right now. That's just the end of your season. You're just going to have to plan again for next year, I think. Yeah, seriously, man. I've got a little crash course in there because people ask all this all the time. They come in about now. They're like, oh, what do I do? Okay, there you go. Go in. You need to understand behavior. How do they communicate with one another? How do they move across the landscape? How do you figure out your setups? Because it doesn't matter how good of a caller you are. If you don't have your setups right, you're just going to see elk, and that's about it. So look at the first section there that talks about behavior. Go through it. Understand how they communicate, why, and what they're doing on the landscape. And then you jump straight into watch it. There's a full 9 videos on cow vocalizations. There's another 8 or 9 videos on bull vocalization. But I've even set aside these little crash courses. Here's how you do the targeted strategy. Here's how you do the lost muse. Here's how you do the assembly muse. Here's what you do with whines. You got it? Yes. Now jump into the Elk Hunter Strategy app. Now watch me do it every single time, no matter what setting I'm in, and put them like 7 steps in front of me. So don't overthink it. Just follow it and trust it.
All right, guys, keep putting your questions there. Next question: how about answering early season versus hunting during muzzleloader? And I wonder if he means, early season archery hunting in Colorado before the muzzleloader start around the 10th or 11th of Colorado. Let's assume he's talking about that.
I'm just going to defer to what I just said. No difference. Seriously, you're going to have to come. You're going to have to engage that animal, no matter where you are in that hunting season. The only thing that you're going to have to figure out that the animal that you're engaging, are they on their own or are they with cows? And are they pressured? After that, I mean, we have no idea. You could run into opening week this week or this year. So it starts on September 2nd. Well, that first weekend of September is Labor Day weekend. You're going to have a pile of people in the woods. So you could have absolutely extremely pressured animals right off the get-go. But then again, by third week, depending on where you are in muzzleloader, you may find a pocket of elk that maybe not as pressured. Again, just fundamentals, man. Fundamentals. Start with the fundamentals of communication. Work your way up as far as intensity and aggression, and figure out what the bull is, because you don't know the bull that you're dealing with until you engage them. You don't know if they're an aggressive bull. You don't know what their personality is. You don't know if they have cows, if they don't have cows, how old is he. You don't know any of that until you engage him. So start with the fundamentals and build up.
Right, and one of the things I would tell archers is maybe start acting a little bit more like guys that hunt with a rifle or hunt with a muzzleloader. And hear me out on this, because I hear Chris going,
No.
If you finally drawn this muzzleloader tag, and now you can shoot at these animals at 100 or 150 yards, let's say, you need to be a little bit more using your binoculars, hear an elk bugle, try and spot them, go, okay, that's not even a bull that I want. Let's go to a different area. I think as archers and as callers, we kind of get ingrained to, we hear an elk, we're going to go and mess with him. Well, you could waste an hour with that elk, and that day is shot, and you don't have any other elk to go to. For those guys out there that have shot a bunch of bulls and they're trying to shoot better bulls and trying to, and beat their own success in, 330, now it's 340, now it's 350 or whatever, you're going to have to use process of elimination of putting your eyes on them. That's not a bull I want to go after. Let's look for something else. Okay, that's not a bull. That's not a bull. And it's just a numbers game. And then, boom, you find one. Okay, now I have one to play with that if he comes in, I want to shoot. So don't be wasting your time on elk. And then there's some guys out there that are listening that go, I'll just shoot any elk that comes in. And that's fine. I'm not saying, correct. I'm just saying if you are one of those guys that maybe drew a tag and you want to be a little bit more choosy, start acting a little more choosy, use your eyes and be a little more picky about where you actually go and try and engage an elk. if you can look across the drainage and be like, he's not even a bull I want to shoot, go find another one. Don't waste time.
But if he is a bull you want to shoot, you can see him. The other thing too is, just because you hear an elk bugle doesn't mean you need to bugle back at him. Doesn't mean that you need to call to him from a distance. Jay, you and I, and everybody that talks about elk calling always talks about get in close. Get in close before you start calling. There's so many people that feel like, oh, I heard a bull bugle. Bugle. I need to bugle at him. Get him to respond. Why? Calling is a tool. Sometimes the best thing to do is if you hear a bull bugling and he's just bugling and he's doing his own thing, keep your mouth shut. Just close the distance. Don't let him know you're somebody out there. Don't let
him stay in his pattern. If he's just bugling, let him keep bugling, and you get in there close and look at him.
You get in close and look at him, or get in close and shoot him, or get in close and you're like, okay, he's right there, but I can't see him. I don't have a shot. Now is when I need to use my tools to try to influence him to make a move my way. Don't set yourself up for failure just by jumping in blindly, trying to make some sound and just completely go, oh, crap, there's a hunter over there. I need to shut down. I got to go quiet, or we need to move off, or what? No.
Next question. Will the August moisture in the southwest state, will this forage improvement make for an early rut or better than normal rut? I think in Arizona specifically, and down by the .6 where we have really good moisture, I think the body condition of the elk is in good shape, and that the cows are fat and sassy, if you will. And I think from my experience that usually turns into animals feeling good. It turns into normal cycling periods. And yes, most of the time when you have good monsoonal moisture, it turns into a bugle fest, a rut fest, a scream fest, a meatball fest, whatever you call it. That's my experience. Chris?
Yeah, and it really depends on the type of forage that you're dealing with. Jay, you and I talked about this, I believe, in the last one, the forage quality. If we're talking about warm season grasses like blue grama grass, it's most of that blue grama grass is already, it'll stay green and it'll have some good forage quality, but it's not going to really explode. Your cool season grasses like your bluegrasses and fescues and that type of stuff, you can get a really good flourish on, really good green up on that. So that can kind of affect things. But no, I mean, most of the areas that are getting rain or that had some rain, the forage quality is going to be pretty good. And I don't think it's going to kick anything off as far as making anything early. It's just going to, hopefully, it just allows those cows to have enough body condition to them to where they can cycle on their normal cycle.
Question here. I can't find the cows on my unit, and my hunt starts September 1st in Utah. I have pictures of bulls since July, no cows. What's he do, Chris?
I don't know the terrain. Is he talking about being able to get up on places in glass, or is he down in the timber and thick stuff where he's using game cameras and he's only finding, I don't know the habitat that he's in, but
I'd be looking other places. It sounds like he's in a bull pasture, and if you're only getting summer bull elk pictures, you're in a bull pasture, and likely I'd rather go find a cow pasture. Go find where all the cows are.
You might have to go miles. He may just be looking in this basin and that basin, and I'm not saying this is what he's doing. I've seen this with sheep hunting as well, or goat hunting, where you finally find a band of sheep. You've been scouting and scouting, you can't find anything, you finally find a band of sheep, but there's really nothing in there that's mature or goats, but yet you just kind of keep coming back there because at least you get to see sheep. You need to leave, and go look somewhere else, and you may be spending days of seeing nothing but rock, and then you're like, well, but I want to go back and look at those. No, you don't want to go back and look at those sheep because you already know that there's nothing there that you want. So sometimes people will find bulls in an area, and maybe there's a really nice bull or two in there, and then they're like, okay, so I'm going to watch this. Well, I'm going to go over here. Oh, I don't find any cows, so I'm going to come back. I don't come. No, leave. You may have to go miles in several basins up over the mountain and completely different area, and just, okay, you found those. That's great. You need to go somewhere else and look because those cows could be miles away. And then, but once you find them, Now you're going to be that those bulls will start making their way that way. You can have the cows bust up too. That's true, but the bulls will start making their way that way.
Any tips for recovering from a poorly made bugle or cow call?
Let them settle. Okay. Poorly
Don't
made.
follow it up with another bad one.
There you go. But by the same token, though, okay, here's how we answer this one. If 80% of your calls are unpredictable and variable, and some of them and 80% of them kind of come out wrong and not the way you wanted them to, okay, start practicing some more. Now, just don't practice bad habits, but just try to get yourself a little bit better and more consistent, so that way when you pick up your call, you can make a sound. If the vast majority of your sounds are kind of unpredictable and you end up with a bad sound, maybe you just stop calling for several minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, let those elk settle down, grab a different style call, maybe a different open reed style, or grab a mouth diaphragm or something, so you have a different vocal signature. Maybe try to move positions a little bit and then start over again and rework them. Now, if you're a good caller and 90% of your vocalizations are just right on the money and you can execute them, and you just make a mistake, just keep moving through it. Don't even stop on it. Don't even act like anything happened. If you make a squeak or a weird, don't just go and then stop and then everything go quiet.
Yeah, and they just look up.
Yeah, they're like, what happened to you? Did she just get ate by a lion or what? Just work right through it. There's cows and bulls that sound horrible. Just keep the continuity of what you're doing and move right through it, and just get yourself back into a good cycling of calling, and then phase out or do whatever you want. But it depends on what type of caller you are. Do you think yes, no?
Yeah, I mean, I make a bad call every once in a while, and I just either give it just a little bit and go right in and make a sweet sound, and it doesn't matter. I think, switch calls too. If you've got one, especially on those open reed calls, sometimes every once in a while they can get wet. You can make a squawk. I always carry 2 or 3 of them and just switch calls, and, they don't even think anything about it. Because, how many times, Chris, you've been out there and you hear kind of a funny sound, and then you hear a sweet sound right after it. You're like, oh, right. She had a piece of grass in her mouth and it just didn't make the right sound.
Yep.
Chris, I've got here, I credit Chris with getting my first bull. I signed up for his elk module, was new to elk hunting. He provided me with a great education on elk vocalizations, how and why elk calls, and what they mean. That's awesome. Due to last year's Colorado fires, I'm forced to find a new unit for OTC early season archery. Sounds like low-density elk, low-density hunters is a better move than high-density elk and high-density hunters. So, Chris, would you go to an area that maybe doesn't have as much elk and maybe doesn't have as many people than high elk densities and high elk people pressure?
Yeah, that's a hard one. If the low-density area was such that you knew where those elk were going to be, yes. Because or I had plenty of time to go find them. That's the issue. When you're in those low density areas, hopefully you have low density hunters. That's not always the case, because if it's easy terrain and it's close to, if we're talking Colorado, if it's close to Colorado Springs or close to Denver or whatever, you're not going to be easy terrain, close to people. You're going to have a lot of people there. Yeah. So if it's low density, do you have the ability to locate those animals? If that's the case, then maybe. But just understand, you might be out there spending many, many days trying to find those elk. So at that point, I guess the big thing was, if that's what you want to do, good, okay, that makes sense. But just make sure that you have the tools once you do find an elk, that you can capitalize on every opportunity that you're given, because it may take you 5 days to figure out where they are. Conversely, in another unit that has a lot of elk, yeah, you might have a lot of hunters, but that's the thing is, if you got a lot of elk around, oftentimes you can just
all it takes one.
Yeah, it's all it takes is one, and you can oftentimes figure out how to get around people, even though there's a lot of them around. So it's a 6 and 1, half dozen the other. It all depends on how much time you have and do you know where those elk are in those low density areas.
Another shout out, don't forget to mention Row Hunting Resources app, great tool to use.
Oh yeah,
great stuff, Chris. I'm a first year elk hunter and don't hear, it just moved on me. I don't hear many people talking about late season archery, early to mid November. Do you have any tips? Yeah, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on that because I want to cover the rut stuff right now, but
let me answer it.
Okay.
Just go do exactly what I said. Again, if you follow my philosophy, I'm not playing to testosterone. I don't need to my strategy is not how I call and why I call the way I call is not dependent upon September. I use this exact same thing in November on late hunts as I do. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Again, we're talking about fundamental base core vocalizations that elk use to speak to one another. So if you have a late season hunt, go onto the website, learn the cow vocalizations, and especially the cow vocalizations at that point, especially pay attention to the calf vocalization stuff that's in there and that will be in there from the conversation Jay and I just had. It's irrelevant. You don't need to play to testosterone at any time, whether it not as a first play. You can use fundamentals in August. You can use
everyday language
every day. You can use it in January. So anyway.
But I think also those later hunts, they don't tend to vocalize as much. So as a late season archery hunter, especially in Arizona, I think this hunter's from Arizona. A lot of guys really start focusing on water. A lot of guys really start focusing on feed and where they're shading up and bedding up for the afternoon.
Using glass.
Archery elk hunting in November in Arizona can be extremely tough because most of the time they don't move very much and they live in very, very thick, nasty, brushy canyons, and getting close to them is hard. We can talk about that later here after.
Yeah, my mind went right to late season cow hunts, but yeah, you're right. You're right. My mind might have gone in a different direction.
And especially archery too. Difference in style/techniques between hunting mountain states and hunting the canyon country of Arizona, like units up on the rim. So, Chris, I think you said it. You don't really change much.
No, and even on the rim, if they've never been on the rim, they're going to be surprised at how big those pines are and how open they are, So, yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing is, guys, you've got to find elk to play with. And that's the same whether you're in the mountains or out in the flats in the pinyon juniper. And a lot of it is feed and water. And once you find them, they're just elk. I mean, they're going to act very similar, whether they're in the pines or as far as vocalizations, they're going to act fairly similar. But to find them, obviously get up high in glass, go check the water holes, go check for sign, take good long walks and try and find where there's trails and where you see lots of fresh tracks and sign and droppings, and elk are elk.
Yeah, just adjust your setups accordingly to the terrain.
Yeah,
and,
got a few questions here. And guys, keep putting your questions there, but I've got some that also came in earlier on Instagram. How often do you guys call as you move through the trees when unsure where the elk are? So you don't know where the elk are. How often do you just kind of call and are trolling?
For me, it all depends on how many people are in the area. If I feel like I'm in a relatively it doesn't have to be remote. If no one else is around, and I know the elk are there somewhere.
I'm sorry, Chris. I interrupt you.
Did you see that? Yeah, I saw that one too.
I just couldn't help but laugh.
We talked about nose jammer on the last one, so I throw that in the same realm. It's all nose jammer.
I kept trying to fight the smile off, and then finally I just laughed out loud. Go ahead.
But no, I just if I know, exactly. If I know that I'm kind of out there by myself, and I know where the elk are there somewhere, and I have a purpose for where I'm going, then I might call. And then I might actually call as I'm walking. Number one. Number two, I'm going to be basing that off of what I'm, what's the environment around me. It's one of those days where the birds are singing, the ravens are, flying around, and the hawks are flying around, the squirrels are dropping pine cone bombs out on top of you. If the woods is alive, then I'm going to be a little bit more freer on possibly calling as I'm moving. But we all know that there's those days where you don't even want to step on wet grass because it's too loud. Well, if that's the type of day that I'm dealing with, I'm not going to say squat, most likely. So you really got to play it by what you're seeing and hearing in the woods around you, and then play it smart. Are there other hunters in the area? Are they going to hear you and then come right up in your back pocket? Or do you even know if there's elk around? If that's the case, then yeah, all those factors go into whether or not I call as I move. But I've got plenty of examples on my videos where I'm calling and moving.
How to increase your chances for broadside shot, not frontal, when calling solo?
Yeah, we talked about that one last time, didn't we? Or was that on the video that we? No, I think that was on the last live that we did. Yeah, you just need to get your setup. Just make sure that doorway. You set up to where when they come in and they pause, just don't take the shot until they decide to take another step and either move through. And just keep on coming on through, because there's plenty of times where that's going to happen. I mean, most people, as soon as that elk hits that doorway, they just feel pressured to shoot them there. Well, you don't have to shoot them there. Just let them keep moving. They're going to pause. They're going to look. And oftentimes, if you've done your job right, they're just going to continue to walk through and just kind of follow them and let them just eat one broadside. Or if they start to get a little squirrely and they're like, nah, I'm going to leave or whatever, as they turn to move away, either give them a little bit of a vocalization, just to kind of stop them and just kind of get them to lock up in their tracks, maybe get broadside there, or let them, if they do spook a little bit, let them trot, and let them turn. A lot of times they're going to trot a couple steps, they're going to turn, and they're going to look back, and a lot of times you can get a quartering away shot there. But I just prefer to get my bow set up such that I can take a frontal or a quartering 2 shot and just have my arrow go from the front right throughout the other end of him and kill him that way. But no, you don't have to kill him as soon as they stop in the doorway. Just let them continue to move through.
Chris, I've got a question here. Explain, see you first, hear you second, smell you third.
That's what's on the video. That's what's on the website.
$25. Yeah. Pony up.
Yeah, the see you first principle is based on how elk want to see. They're a visual species. So everybody talks about vocalization, but most everybody forgets about all just the vast majority, about 80+% of their communication is all visual. So and I go into it in depth on the website about the fact that this is why people talk about all the time, well, that bull's going to swing downwind. Not if you set yourself up right, he won't. And if you're calling correctly, he won't, because he won't think anything of, he won't think there's any reason to swing downwind, because you just, no, play to what they want. They want to see you first, they want to hear you second, and they want to smell you third. When we're talking about communication, not when we're talking about danger. Danger, they want to smell you first. But if you don't set yourself up to where they think there's danger, they don't default to that position. Now, in heavily hunted over-the-counter units, yes, you can have, especially some of those younger age class bulls, that have been beat up and pushed out and run around and have run into other hunters before. Okay, maybe they do. They get a little cautious of everything and they want to come in downwind. But again, if you set yourself up correctly and you call correctly, you will greatly reduce the likelihood of them thinking anything is wrong and then wanting to swing downwind. And if you're cognizant of the fact that the bulls might be, pressured and want to swing downwind, then set yourself up to where the doorway is such to where when he wants to try to swing downwind, you get a shot opportunity on it. So
it's good stuff. Guys, I want to remind you, if you're not a Go Hunt insider, to go to gohunt.com/JScott, and you're going to get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card just for signing up. Also, KUIU has stepped up. You're going to be in a drawing to potentially win $1,500 worth of KUIU gear. I also want to tell you, with the new Go Hunt maps, both the mobile and the desktop, that's an added value to being a Go Hunt Insider member. So not only before, you had the draw odds, harvest statistics, all of that stuff with the Go Hunt Insider. Now you've got the mapping that's all part of it. It's the same price. Use the J Scott promo code, and they're also giving a bunch of stuff away on their Summer of Elk giveaway. Also, guys, if you're looking for hunting gear, you're getting a 10% discount at the Go Hunt Gear Shop. So use the J Scott promo code at checkout, get the 10% discount. Also, you can call Cody Nelson, optics, tripods, any of that kind of stuff. Text him on his cell phone, 602-399-3699. Make sure you use J Scott, get the discount. Another question here: would you recommend hang a decoy on a tree a few yards back when hunting solo and calling in a bull, or should you keep the decoy with you?
Yeah, people can go back and there's two. So we had a good in-depth discussion on this last time, and I've got a complete video regarding decoys on the website. Quite honestly, this is a philosophical question, I guess. For my philosophy on calling, I've heard this from numerous people that have learned to call the way I do. Ditch the decoy, work the setup, and you're going to have a hell of a lot of success with it. Now, with that being said, if you are the type of person that feels they need a decoy, the different decoys are going to create a different outcome for you. But yes, if you feel that you need to use a decoy, then if it's a type of decoy that's a static decoy, then yes, if you want to put it off to the side of you and behind you a ways and have it static, I kind of recommend the elk butt decoy from Montana Decoy, because it makes sense that it's a static decoy, not moving. Set that off to the side of you and back away from you if you want, but make sure it still can be seen from that doorway. If you want to have the decoy with you, then I would choose the style of decoy that's going to allow you to have some motion in it. Excuse me. I like the heads up style decoy because it's tiny. It's the head and the neck of an elk. And if I need a little bit of movement, like I just pick the head up of an elk out behind a tree, and then I can put the head back down. It's kind of like an elk picking her head up and putting it back down feeding. Having that dynamic movement can sometimes help. If you want, a buddy of mine owns Ultimate Predator decoys. Awesome decoy that fits on both the heads up decoy can stick on your bow, and the Ultimate Predator decoy can stick on your bow. Ultimate Predator decoy, what I like about that one is, if you are the type of person that wants a more aggressive style, or you're going to be moving in or spot and stalk or moving towards that animal, that decoy is awesome for that style of hunting, because you're moving towards the animal. That style of decoy in a static fashion, sometimes, man, it'll just lock them up because the ears are not moving. A cow elk, when her head is up, her ears are always moving. Her head's always moving, unless she's alarmed. And so a lot of times they'll come in and they key on that, and if they don't see that movement, then something's wrong. That's why I say the elk butt decoy, if you want a decoy. But 99.99% of the time, work the setup, ditch the decoy.
Guys, we've spent Chris's ear here for a little over an hour, and I appreciate your time, Chris. And I've got some other meetings here this afternoon. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I'm getting a lot of good feedback on these Instagram lives. And Chris, I just want to thank you for coming on. And hopefully we'll get to chat again before the season. But, we're 18th. I'm leaving for the 31st for the '06. So another season is upon us, 2021. I just wish everybody out there the best of success, and make sure to send Chris and I photos. Follow Chris on Instagram, Row Hunting Resources. Make sure to check out the elk module. And guys, again, thanks for everything. Chris, you got any final last thoughts?
No, just everybody, you're right down to the wire now. It's the last little bit of getting things lined out. And for those, I saw more questions coming in, people wanting to know, what about calling like this? What about calling like this? I know it's a selfless plug, but I mean, geez, Pete, get on the elk module. It's $25 for 3 months. You can have it right now. And there's so much information that you can get legitimately right now that's going to change the fundamental success, your potential for success. So you're not too late. Just go rowhuntingresources.com. Just sign up for the elk module. Just get the $25 one. It's easy. And then just start at behavior, and then jump into the cow vocalizations, and then just take it step by step. We've got a lot of video content in there, yes, but you can get a lot of information very, very quickly, and you're going to understand why I don't necessarily play to testosterone, and it will answer so many people's questions. So just seriously, and then yeah, we can ask Jay questions, ask me questions, or whatever, privately, DM, whatever you want. We'll answer them what we can. But yeah, you've got time. You have time. So jump in there and dig it apart.
Awesome. God bless everyone. Take care.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
Bye.
Guys, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. If you want to send me a direct message, you can do so on my Instagram account, which is at jscottoutdoors. You can also send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. I appreciate all the feedback on the podcast, and I look forward to hearing from you. GoHunt.com Insider has Filtering 2.0, where you can get draw odds, strategy articles, species and unit breakdowns, and unbelievable gear giveaways. Did you know that they actually have a point system where you get 11% back to the consumer for using points for every dollar spent? Also, a new addition is the mapping, Go Hunt Maps. You have the desktop version, you have the mobile version for iOS and for Android users. There's never been a greater value for the Go Hunt Insider. Check them out at gohunt.com/JScott.